All right, so now we're going to do a run through of our secure aggregation simulator code that we've written in Python and using the Mininet framework. So what essentially happens here is we run down to the main file. It's going to be we set up our own topology, which is composed of three input sensor nodes and one aggregator node and one query node. And so the way it works is after we've set up our Mininet, it'll start up the aggregator and query nodes. And what will happen is the query node will transmit a set of encrypted weights to the aggregator, upon which it'll perform its computations according to whatever input it gets. The aggregator is going to be listening for it, and then it saves the weights. And then after this is completed, it'll listen for the input from different sensor nodes. And so at this point, we have the input nodes transmit their input data to this aggregator, and the aggregator performs the computation using the weights that was received from the query node, and then finally transmits it to the query node who has been listening this whole time. After that, we stop the network. So let's just do a quick run through of this code. So here we're just going to be running it. We have three aggregator nodes and three input nodes and one aggregator node. So that's our hyperparameters for this call. So here you can see that for our query node, the IP address is 10.0.0.5 and the aggregator is 10.0.0.4. We have three transmitting nodes, which are located at 1, 2, and 3. And so this doesn't show much, so let's actually look at the query files that are produced from it. Okay, so this is the query nodes log file. So what happens first is that it transmitted data to a node at this IP address, and then it begins listening to it begins listening at this IP address because this is its own IP address. It receives data from the aggregator later on, which is an encrypted value using some Pyre scheme, and then finally it decrypts it using its own key, and then it derives this value from it. And so if we take a look at the aggregator, we should be able to see that it received some information from the query node and then finally pulled some data from the input nodes and then later transmitted it. So here you'll notice that we received some data first from the querier, which is at this IP address, and it's some kind of Pyre scheme as well. It starts listening for the different sensor nodes, and so it gets data from these IP addresses, which are these values. And then finally, it calculates some encrypted number and transmits it from the aggregator to this IP address, which is the querier. And then if you recall from before, we have pulled out this decrypted value if we were the querier.